Islam Karimov is known as one of the most despotic leaders on the planet. He has been president of Uzbekistan since the fall of the Soviet Union some 20 years ago. Half a continent away, Hosni Mubarak, 30-year president of Egypt, was recently removed from power by his people. Egyptians cited the pitiful economic situation and lack of democracy as their main reasons for participating in the protests that led to the January 25th revolution. It has been said that of the large Central Asian republics, Uzbekistan is the most likely to follow in Egypt's footsteps. As the largest and fastest-growing country in Central Asia, Uzbekistan is vulnerable to massive social and economic challenges. Karimov has also not been as successful as Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan in spreading its growing energy wealth around the country. It is for this reason that I have chosen to compare the two regimes. Despite differences in degree of severity, many parallels can be drawn between the ruling styles of the two leaders. The two both repressed Islamic opposition parties, justifying it using Western fears of Islamist fundamentalism and its links to terrorism. Both were also known for violently repressing dissent by using whatever means necessary to squelch protests and by torturing imprisoned political dissidents. I will now contrast the lives and politics of these two men and how they have managed to stay in power so long. The two autocrats came to power in countries that would fit into Van der Vliet's category of demanding bioclimate, a factor that he linked with tolerance for autocratic leaders in poor countries. This environment no doubt helped the two leaders to gain and remain in power, but their backgrounds and each man's personality, as well as the amount of international scrutiny each man faced, was a crucial factor in the level of despotism involved in each one's role. Before entering politics, Mubarak was a career Air Force officer. He attended the Egyptian Military Academy and was eventually promoted to the rank of Air Chief Marshal in recognition of his service during the October War of 1973. It was this rank that he held when he was appointed by President Anwar Sadat to the vice presidency. As vice president, he was loyal to Sadat's policies and participated in negotiations that would eventually lead to the peace treaty with Israel. In 1981, Sadat was assassinated by Islamic fundamentalists who were opposed to that peace treaty. For the next 30 years, Mubarak ruled using whatever means necessary to maintain himself in power. This includes a decades-old emergency law that allowed Mubarak to use the excuse of state security to put down political protests violently and imprison political opposition. While imprisoned, these men were often treated in less than humane ways. After 30 years of falsified elections, impoverished Egyptians rose up and removed Mubarak from power in February of 2011. Karimov, who grew up in an orphanage, rose through the ranks of the Uzbek Communist Party, eventually becoming its head. When the Soviet Union collapsed, he became president of Uzbekistan and has ruled ever since. He is known for many of the same methods of political repression as Mubarak, most famously boiling 2 men alive in 2002. Karimov's repression of Islamic opposition and apparent inability to effectively distribute his country's energy wealth to its people are in many ways very similar to President Mubarak. It seems likely that Karimov will not fall as Mubarak did. But why? Mubarak, as president of a country central to Western foreign policy in the Middle East, was under far more international scrutiny than Karimov as president of Uzbekistan will ever be. When protests broke out in Cairo this January, they were the highlight of international news for weeks. When hundreds were massacred during protests in Andijan, Uzbekistan in 2005, news of it barely reached Western nations.